Poor single dad offered half a sandwich, and the billionaire, who was watching, finally learned to stay. Can you pretend this was free? The cashier blinked halfway through punching numbers on the ancient register. Her hands froze over the keypad as the man in front of her leaned in, just slightly, eyes soft, voice low enough not to carry. His coat was soaked at the cuffs, hair dripping at the ends, the smell of rain and cafeteria bleach clinging to him like a second skin. She doesn't need to know. He added, nodding toward the little girl coloring quietly in the corner booth with the one purple crayon they had left. The cashier, late 50s, silver braid, no-nonsense glasses, tilted her head. You sure, hon? You've got your own little one. He smiled, small and tired. We'll share. Half a soup, half a sandwich. That's a whole meal if you tilt your head and squint. She hesitated. Then, without another word, she slid 2 paper-wrapped grilled cheese halves and a small cup of tomato soup into a brown bag. Register promo, she muttered loud enough for the air to hear, but not the ears behind him. He took the bag and turned toward the woman and child at the far booth. The woman sat upright, arms folded, eyes shadowed beneath a hoodie. Her daughter couldn't have been more than 6. Skinny arms, quiet eyes, the kind of stillness that didn't belong to children. The man approached the table like someone approaching a dog that might bite. Storm's not letting up, he said casually. We had a little extra. If she's hungry, she's welcome. The woman's eyes flickered down to the bag, then back up to him. Cold, assessing. We're fine, she said. He nodded, no offense taken. Sure thing. Just figured. He glanced at the window where the rain was now turning the street outside into silver rivers. It's a bad night to be proud. A beat. 2. The woman's jaw tensed. Her daughter looked at the bag, then at the man, then at her mother. She didn't say a word. The man laid the bag gently on the edge of their table. There's also an umbrella. We're gonna run. You can take it if you want. The woman's fingers twitched. For a second she looked like she might reach for it, but then she pulled back. We don't take charity. The man's voice was even. Not defensive, not persuasive, just real. There's no such thing as charity when it's raining, just kindness, and it dries off easy. Without another word, he turned and walked back to his booth. The door chimed. The woman stood gathering her daughter's hand. They stepped out into the rain without looking back. The little girl left her crayon behind. Dad came a small voice. Did we do it wrong? The man looked at his daughter. Wide eyes, damp hair, the corner of her grilled cheese still warm in her hand. No, baby. There's no wrong way to be kind. Just different kinds of hard. Outside, a black SUV pulled from the curb. Behind its tinted window, the woman from the booth sat still, her jaw tight. Her driver looked up through the rear view. Everything all right, ma'am? She didn't answer. Instead, she reached into her coat pocket, pulled out a sleek, silent smartphone, and tapped open her camera. She zoomed in across the diner glass on the man still sitting with his daughter, splitting a sandwich with exact symmetry, laughing at something she drew. Click. A grainy photo. Just a single father in a booth. Half a sandwich. No strings. The rain kept falling. 2 hours earlier. Noah Reed's shift had ended the way most of his nights did, with bleach on his pants, a ripped glove in his pocket, and a hot dog bun in his jacket for dinner. Rosie had been curled up on a waiting bench outside the building where he worked nights cleaning office restrooms. The security guard liked them and let her sit inside the vestibule when it got too cold. She was the kind of kid who made people feel guilty without trying to. Bright, sweet, uncomplaining, which made it worse somehow. They'd missed the last bus. Again. So they walked. Rain started just before they reached the station diner. Rosie hadn't said she was hungry. She never did. But her stomach had growled loud enough to answer for her. The grilled cheese wasn't in the budget. Noah had ordered it anyway. That's when he'd seen the other mother and daughter sitting with nothing but a plastic water cup and a few crackers from the counter. The little girl had been staring at the smell coming off the kitchen like it was a song she couldn't sing. He didn't think, just split his food in half. And now, here they were, Rosie dipping her half sandwich into the soup like it was a game, while Noah tried to remember how far a quarter tank of gas would get them if he cut through the North Bridge. Then his phone buzzed. A notification from the job board app. Declined. Again. He smiled at Rosie because it wasn't her burden, but he felt the weight anyway. Outside, under the shelter of the diner's awning, the SUV hadn't moved. Inside it, Evelyn Sloan stared at the photo on her phone. The father and daughter backlit by neon. She had come to this part of town on purpose. No bodyguards, no assistant. Just a beanie hoodie and a craving to disappear for a night. She hadn't expected to feel anything. But something about the way the man offered that sandwich without knowing, without asking, without assuming, had cut through her like a blade made of warmth. Her daughter had stared at that food like it hurt. And the man hadn't looked twice at Evelyn. Just helped. No pitch, no speech, no idea who she was. Evelyn looked at her reflection in the black glass. The rain made her face blur. Maybe that was for the best. She whispered almost to herself, "Kindness isn't always grand, but it's always noticed." She didn't know then that the man's name was Noah. Didn't know he cleaned floors where her foundation had offices. Didn't know her own silence would haunt her. But she knew this she'd been seen, and that scared her more than the photo ever could. "Purple makes clouds feel less lonely," Rosie said, offering the crayon like a sacred gift. The other little girl, Isla, though no one had said her name, yet hesitated. Her fingers didn't move, but her eyes flicked to her mother for permission. Evelyn gave the smallest nod, barely perceptible. Isla reached out and took the crayon. Rosie beamed. "See? Now it's a friendship color." Noah smiled faintly, watching the girls on the park bench draw suns over rain puddles in a battered sketchbook. The air still smelled like last night's storm-wet bark exhaust cold metal. But the clouds had parted just enough for light to fall in slanted beams between the bare trees. The kind of light that made things look softer than they really were. He didn't recognize the woman sitting a few feet away. Different coat, different shoes, hair tucked into a gray knit cap, but something about her posture felt familiar, upright alert like someone bracing for a question they didn't want to answer. Evelyn, for her part, hadn't expected to see him again. She hadn't expected him to look exactly the same, as if kindness had no face, just a posture, a tone, a way of showing up. "You're raising her right," she said without preamble. Noah turned slightly. "She's the easy part. The world's the tricky one." Evelyn gave a dry, quiet laugh. "Ain't that the truth?" They sat in companionable silence for a moment. Only the soft sounds of crayons pages turning and a light wind whispering through empty branches. Then she asked, "You always give away your food like that." Noah didn't flinch. "Only when I can't afford not to." She tilted her head. "That's supposed to be noble." "No," he said. "It's supposed to be human." That answer caught her off guard, not because of what he said, but how easily he said it. No defense, no pride, just fact. She looked back toward the girls. Rosie had drawn a giant purple sun in the corner of the page and was adding eyelashes to it. "Most people who offer umbrellas," Evelyn said slowly, "want your address by morning." Noah nodded. "Most people who refuse them got burned before." She looked at him. "You always that quick?" He shrugged. "When I'm not tired." She allowed herself a small smile. "I'm Evelyn." "Noah," he said. "That your little one?" She glanced at Isla. "Yeah, she's not usually this quiet. New city, new everything. Hard to tell which part she's adjusting to and which part she's just surviving." "You staying long?" Pause. "Maybe. Running from something." Evelyn looked at him, eyes narrowing slightly. "That always your second question?" "No," he replied, deadpan. "Usually it's third." She laughed again, really laughed this time. It surprised even her. Isla and Rosie turned grinning. "Mom," Isla whispered. "Can we stay a little longer?" Evelyn looked down. At her daughter, then at Rosie, then at Noah. "Yeah," she said, softening. "We can stay." They moved to the same bench. The girls sat close sketchbook between them, drawing suns with tails and clouds that smiled. Evelyn watched Rosie, how easily she offered, how gently she shared space. "She's generous," she said again, more to herself than him. Noah nodded. "Learned it somewhere." Evelyn looked at him this time with curiosity that wasn't masked. You, her teacher, or her student Noah, didn't answer right away. Then, "Depends on the day." A silence passed. Not uncomfortable, just deep. Then Evelyn asked, "What do you do?" Noah leaned back, stretching out a leg that had cramped during the night shift. "Nights I mop. Mornings I cook eggs. Afternoons I nap in 12-minute chapters." That sounds. She searched for the word. Efficient. He grinned. "It's a lifestyle. You always had it like this, no. But life's good at pruning things down to the essentials. Some folks need silence to learn. I needed struggle." Another pause. Evelyn finally asked, "Do you ever take help?" He turned his head slowly. Not defensive, just honest. "Not if it cost me my name." That landed. Hard. She didn't reply. Not immediately. Instead, she let the weight of that settle like snow between them. From the corner of the bench, Isla pointed. "Mom, look, Rosie made our sons hold hands." Evelyn leaned over. The picture was ridiculous, 2 cartoon suns with little arms reaching across a rainbow, smiling with their mouths wide open. Rosie grinned. "They're friends now. That means the weather's going to be good." "Is it?" Noah asked. Rosie nodded firmly. "Even if it rains again." The wind picked up slightly. Evelyn pulled her coat tighter. She didn't know why she was still here, why she hadn't called the car back, why her daughter had spoken more words in 10 minutes than in the last week. Maybe it was the way Rosie drew with full confidence, like the world hadn't yet told her to shrink. Maybe it was Noah's voice, gentle but rooted like someone who'd been shaped by storms but never broken by them. Or maybe, just maybe, it was the way he never once asked what she did, never once tried to guess, never looked past her to imagine what she could give. She was tired of being a transaction. Here, somehow, she wasn't one. What would help? She asked if it didn't cost you anything. Noah blinked. That was a rare question. He considered it, then answered with all the quiet clarity of a man who'd been carrying it too long. "A door," he said. "One that opens the same way for me tomorrow as it does today." Evelyn closed her eyes for a breath. When she opened them, she saw Isla leaning into Rosie, giggling. The sketchbook flipped in the breeze. Somewhere behind them, a bus groaned to a stop. Noah stood slowly brushing off his coat. "She's got school soon, and I've got dishes waiting for me." Evelyn stood too. "Thanks for the bench." He nodded. "Thanks for letting her keep the crayon." Their eyes met, not charged, not lingering, just steady, like 2 people who'd met in the middle of a storm and decided not to flinch. As he walked away, Rosie trailing behind with the sketchbook clutched to her chest, Evelyn felt something shift. Not a twist, not a revelation, just an opening. A crack in the window she'd sealed shut long ago. She looked down at the bench. A single purple crayon lay where Rosie had left it. Without thinking, Evelyn picked it up. And for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel like she had to explain why. It started with a cough. Not loud, not sharp, just one of those small warning sounds a parent learns to recognize in their bones. Then came the wheeze. By the time Noah turned, Rosie's tiny shoulders were already trembling, her eyes wide, lips parting in silent panic. The sketchbook fell from her hands onto the concrete. Hey, breathe with me," he said, kneeling fast. "In through the nose, out through the mouth. Just like at home, okay? In, out?" She tried, but the sound that came out was a whistle, thin and desperate. Noah's heart kicked into overdrive. "Inhaler," he muttered, rummaging through his backpack. "Come on, baby, where's your nothing?" His fingers scraped the bottom of the bag, only finding crumbs, a pen, a half-used packet of tissues. The color had already drained from Rosie's face, and that's when a voice cut through the chaos. "Car, now." Evelyn's tone wasn't loud, but it carried, like command disguised as calm. Noah looked up, confused, panicked, still half on his knees. "Ma'am, it's fine, It's not fine," she said already, lifting Isla into her arms. "She's losing oxygen. Get her in the back seat." Noah froze for half a second, instinct wrestling with pride. Then he scooped Rosie up and ran. The SUV doors slammed shut behind them, sealing in the panic and the smell of rain-soaked air. "Back. Seat down," Evelyn ordered. "There's an oxygen pack. Harper makes me carry one." Noah blinked. "Whose doesn't matter. Turn her head to the side." He obeyed. Rosie's chest fluttered like a trapped bird. Evelyn crouched beside them, pressing buttons on the emergency valve. Her fingers moved with precision, unshaken. "She needs airflow. Tilt her chin, good." The oxygen hissed. Rosie gasped once, twice, then clutched his sleeve with tiny fingers. "There we go." Evelyn murmured the kind of voice people only use for their own children. "There you go, sweetheart." Noah swallowed hard. "How did you— I have a kid too," she said quietly, eyes fixed on Rosie. Different problem. Same terror. 15 minutes later, they pulled under the harsh fluorescent lights of St. Augustine Memorial. The nurse at the intake counter didn't even look up at first. "Insurance card." Noah's voice caught. "We're, between cards right now." The nurse sighed, already reaching for a clipboard. "Then you'll need to, soft-click cut her off." A black credit card landed on the counter with the kind of sound money makes when it refuses to apologize. "Bill it to the Sloan Foundation," Evelyn said. No press, no calls. The nurse looked up fast. Recognition flashed across her face, then professionalism took over. "Yes, ma'am. We'll handle it." Noah blinked. "Sloan." The word came out like a question, half-breathed. Evelyn didn't look at him. "She needs oxygen. Talk pride to me later." Rosie was stabilized within the hour. A nebulizer, IV fluids, warm blankets, the familiar rhythm of hospital machines turning crisis into lullaby. Noah sat by her bed, both hands wrapped around hers. His knuckles were pale, his voice gone. Every beep on the monitor felt like a confession. Across the room, Evelyn stood by the window, arms crossed, staring at the rain that had started again. Ela had fallen asleep in a chair beside her head against her mother's lap. The silence between them wasn't awkward this time. It was heavy, human. Finally, Noah spoke. "You didn't have to do that." Evelyn didn't turn. "I know. I mean it. You didn't even know us. Didn't need to. People don't, just—" He stopped, shook his head. "People don't do that." She faced him then. People forget how. Their eyes met. It wasn't gratitude. It wasn't pity. Just something raw recognition. "Why do you do it?" he asked after a long pause. "Help, I mean." Evelyn tilted her head, thinking. "Because someone once did it for me. And didn't make me pay for the receipt." Noah exhaled slowly. "And now you're passing it on." "Not always. Sometimes I just try not to break what's already cracked." He studied her face, the quiet exhaustion hiding behind the confidence, the sadness that money couldn't bleach out. She wasn't what he expected. Then again, he hadn't expected any of this. "You ever get tired?" he asked. "Every day," she said softly, "but tired's cheaper than regret." Rosie stirred eyes fluttering open. Her voice came out small. "It's like breathing through a straw, then the straw gets bigger." Noah smiled, his relief breaking into quiet laughter. "We'll get you a giant straw next time. Maybe one of those twisty ones." Evelyn stepped closer, kneeling beside the bed. "You scared us for a second, sweetheart." Rosie blinked up at her. "Are you a doctor?" "No," Evelyn said. "Just someone who carries too many emergency kits." Rosie thought about that for a moment, then whispered, "That's a good thing to carry." Evelyn's smile softened. Maybe. Later, when Rosie finally drifted back to sleep, Noah stood near the doorway, arms folded. "I don't like owing people," he said quietly. Evelyn looked up from her chair. "Then, don't." He frowned. "It's not that simple." "Yes, it is." She rose and stepped closer, voice low. "Someone once kept a door open for me when I couldn't see my way out. I'm keeping it open for you. That's not debt. That's design." Noah studied her for a long time. "You really think people can just pass kindness around like currency? I think that's the only currency that doesn't lose value." He let out a small laugh. "You talk like a teacher. I talk like someone who's been wrong enough to learn better." Their eyes lingered a moment too long before she turned away, pulling her coat tighter around her shoulders. Outside the hospital window, the rain had softened into a mist. The city lights reflected off puddles like tiny fires refusing to die. Evelyn checked her phone. Dozens of missed messages. Harper's name flashing at the top. She ignored them all. She didn't want to go back yet, not to the meetings, not to the boardrooms where empathy was a marketing strategy. For once, she wanted to stay where things were simple, where people meant what they said, where kindness wasn't filtered through policy or PR. She looked back at Noah. He was sitting again, head bowed over Rosie's bed, murmuring a lullaby so low it sounded like a prayer disguised as a tune. Something inside her, something she'd buried under years of deadlines and silence, shifted. Not attraction, not yet, just recognition. A reminder that decency still existed even when the world wasn't watching. When the nurse came in to check Rosie's vitals, Evelyn slipped quietly into the hallway. Noah followed. They stood under the flickering fluorescent light, the hum of the vending machine filling the space between them. "Thank you," he said finally. 2 words, heavy as stone. Evelyn shook her head. "Don't thank me. Just keep doing what you do, however you do it. I don't know what that is anymore." She met his gaze. "You do. You just forget when you're tired." He let out a breath, half a laugh. "You've got a line for everything, don't you?" she smirked. "Occupational hazard, which is trying to fix things that money breaks." He blinked. "You sound like you know a lot about that. Too much." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The sound of Rosie's soft breathing through the doorway anchored them both. Then Evelyn said almost gently, "Go back in. She'll wake up soon. You don't want her to think the room's empty." Noah nodded. "What about you? I'll be around." Why her lips curved just barely. "Because you don't owe me yet." But when he turned back toward the hospital room, she stayed where she was, hands in her pockets, eyes on the rain. Because she wasn't sure if she was helping him or if he was helping her remember what she'd lost. Noah stood at the vending machine, hands in his pockets, watching the little light blink beside the out-of-order sign. He wasn't even hungry. But something about the broken machine staring back at him felt familiar. Predictable. Honest, even. "I don't like owing people," he said. He didn't look at Evelyn when he said it. Didn't have to. She was leaning against the opposite wall, arms crossed the hospital hallway, echoing with late-night silence. The kind of silence that doesn't need to be filled, just survived. "You keep saying that," she replied. "That's because it's still true." She tilted her head, watching him. "Maybe the problem isn't owing. Maybe it's that you've only ever been offered help with a receipt attached." He met her eyes then. There was no defiance in his gaze, just fatigue layered with experience. People give you something so they can take something else. "And what did I take?" she asked gently. He didn't answer. Couldn't. Evelyn stepped closer, closing the space with quiet, measured steps. Her voice dropped into something softer. "Not everything's a transaction, Noah." He looked away, jaw tight. "Then why does it feel like the invoice is coming later? Because life taught you that," she said. "Not kindness." The fluorescent lights above flickered once, twice, then steadied. He leaned against the machine, now arms folded. "I've worked since I was 16. 2 jobs most of my adult life. Every time someone helped, It came with expectations return the favor show. Your gratitude play the part. Evelyn nodded slowly. And now you don't know what to do when someone doesn't want a favor back. Exactly. Then don't give me anything she said. Don't say thank you. Don't owe me. Just let it be. Noah chuckled under his breath. You make it sound simple. It is simple, she said. It's just not easy. They stood in silence again. Then Evelyn spoke more to the air than to him. I was 19 when someone paid my rent without telling me. I didn't find out until 6 months later. My professor said he didn't want to see potential get evicted. Noah raised his eyebrows. I tracked him down and tried to pay it back. What did he say? She smiled faintly. He said, use it to hold a door open for someone else, and if you shut that door, don't call it mine. Noah exhaled through his nose. That's a good man. He was, she said. He died last year. Never took a cent. So that's why you do this? No, she replied. I do it because if I don't, the silence wins. A nurse passed between them, giving a polite nod. Behind the glass, Rosie shifted in her sleep, her little body still recovering. Noah's voice was quiet now. She had a fever last winter. No insurance then, either. We waited 9 hours at county. I held her in a plastic chair while she wheezed in my hoodie. They saw her after midnight. I sat there praying that nothing worse would happen. Evelyn didn't move, didn't offer a solution. She just listened. Because sometimes listening is the only kindness left that doesn't feel like pity. After a long pause, she asked, what would have helped you back then? Noah answered without thinking. A door that didn't close as soon as I reached it. She looked at him. What kind of door? One that didn't need a password, a suit, or a 5-year plan. Just a name, and a willingness to show up. He laughed once, bitter and soft. But those doors don't open for janitors. Evelyn studied him a moment longer. Then, maybe they should. He looked back at her arms, still folded. You talk like someone with power. I talk like someone who's tired of pretending not to have it. A beat passed between them. And something in that beat shifted. Not attraction, not admiration. Something quieter, like trust auditioning for a second chance. You know, Noah said finally Rosie's never had a real place to belong. School moves too often. Neighbors come and go. She draws sons because she's scared if she doesn't, the sky won't remember how. Evelyn's breath caught just slightly. She told me that, once he added. Matter of fact, like she was talking about her favorite cereal. Evelyn stared at the wall across from them. Isla's like that too. Her dad. She stopped herself. He's not in the picture. Rosie's mom left when she was 2. They looked at each other. 2 parents who hadn't planned for life to look like this. 2 people holding up the sky for children who still drew suns just in case. I'm not looking to be rescued, Noah said, his voice low but firm. I'm not here to rescue you, Evelyn replied. I'm here because it turns out I needed to be reminded of what that dignity looks a lot like a man who gives away half his sandwich without asking for a name. Noah turned toward her fully now. You saw that? She nodded. You were there. I was. He didn't look angry, just surprised. I thought you left. I almost did. What stopped you? She didn't answer right away. Then your daughter. She asked if you did it wrong, and you said there's no wrong way to be kind. Noah stared at her. Most people think kindness is weakness, she added. You made it look like strength. The monitor inside the room beeped a steady rhythm, reminding them life was still unfolding, one breath at a time. I don't know what you want from me, Noah said. But I'm not a project. I don't need saving. Evelyn stepped back slightly, giving him space. And I'm not a savior. I just want to hold a door open. What you do with it, that's yours. He nodded slowly. Then, with a voice almost too quiet to hear, it's been a long time since someone offered without asking for something back. Well, she said, stepping away. Maybe it's time someone did. Inside the room, Rosie stirred again. Noah turned, but before he stepped away, he paused. "You're not what I expected," he said. "Neither are you," she replied. Their eyes met one last time, and for once no one owed anyone anything. But something had still been given. The hallway still smelled like antiseptic and old coffee when Evelyn finally spoke again. "I have a project," she said, calmly, clearly, like she'd rehearsed it in her head 10 different ways and decided to go with the simplest one. Noah turned from Rosie's hospital bed where she was now breathing evenly, cheeks slowly warming with color. His face was tired, lined with 100 sleepless nights and 1,000 unpaid hours. But his eyes were alert now. "What kind of project?" he asked, cautious. Evelyn took a breath, folded her arms, and leaned against the wall like she wasn't about to change his life. "Community kitchens. Not soup lines. Real places. 6 micro-kitchens across the city. Staffed, stocked. For families in between jobs, between homes, between luck." Noah didn't reply, but she saw it, the flicker. That half-second where interest cracked through the weariness. "I'm converting an old warehouse downtown," she continued. "It'll house all 6 kitchens, each with its own lead. No red tape, no forms, just meals, dignity, and doors that stay open." He raised an eyebrow. "Sounds expensive." She half smiled. "It is. And you're offering—" "A job," she said. "Facilities lead. You'd manage the space, oversee the kitchen's trained staff, build systems. It's not charity. It's a paycheck." Noah's voice dropped rough. "Why me?" "Because you see what most people miss," she said. "Because you lead without trying to lead. And because Rosie made a stranger's daughter smile with a purple crayon." He looked down at his boots. "That's not a resume." "It's better," she said. "It's proof of character." He leaned against the doorframe, rubbing his temples. "You don't even know me." "I've seen enough," she replied. "And I don't hire titles. I hire heart." Noah gave a short laugh, one that didn't quite reach his eyes. "What's the catch?" "There isn't one. There's always a catch." She nodded slowly. "All right, here it is. You have to say no if you mean it. Not maybe. Not, I'll think about it. If this doesn't sit right with you, I walk away. No press, no photo ops, no story. Just a quiet offer between 2 people who've survived storms." He studied her carefully as if weighing the truth inside every word. "No probation," he asked. "You start with trust," she said. "You earn everything else." A long silence. Then he said, "I'll interview. Not accept. Not yet." Evelyn didn't flinch. That's the right answer. Another beat passed between them. Then Noah asked, "You ever work with your own hands, like actually build something?" She nodded. "When I was a kid, I spent one summer fixing broken chairs at a retirement home. Learned more about patience and purpose in those 12 weeks than in 4 years of business school. Then you'll understand why I don't build for people who want to use my work as a headline." She met his gaze unwavering. "I don't need headlines. I need kitchens that stay open even when donors lose interest." Just then, Rosie stirred, blinking sleepily. Dad Noah stepped forward, kneeling beside her. "Hey, baby." "You okay? I heard you talking," she mumbled. "Who was that?" Noah glanced at Evelyn, then back at Rosie. "A woman who helped us when the sky got loud." Rosie nodded, already drifting again. "She sounds nice." Noah looked back at Evelyn, and for the first time there was no suspicion in his eyes. Just gratitude, quiet and full. Evelyn gave him a nod. "I'll have my assistant send the details. You can think it over." Noah hesitated. "You sure I belong in a place like that?" Her voice was steady. "I'm sure that place doesn't belong in the world unless someone like you helps build it." Later in the hospital lobby, Evelyn made the call. "Harper," she said into the phone. "We found our lead." Already, Harper sounded skeptical. "You were only supposed to scope the area, not offer roles. Things changed. Do I want to know how?" "No," Evelyn replied, But you'll want to meet him. You trust him. I trust what he didn't say more than most people's pitch decks." There was a pause on the other end. Then Harper said, "Well, that's a first. Send him the offer details. But make it clean. No bells, no branding, just the facts. Got it. Oh, and Harper, yes-no photo ops." Outside, rain tapped lightly on the windshield of the waiting SUV. Evelyn slid into the back seat, Isla asleep in her arms. She looked down at her daughter's face, the peace, the softness, and thought of Rosie's purple crayon suns. Thought of Noah still inside that building, still holding his daughter's hand like she was the last light in a dark room. "You okay, ma'am?" the driver asked. She didn't answer right away. Then, "Better than I've been in a while." Across town in the same rain, Noah stood beneath a bus shelter holding a to-go cup of weak hospital coffee. Rosie was curled up beside him, wrapped in his coat. He looked down at his phone. One new email. Subject: Facilities. Lead proposal sender: Harper Voss, Sloan Foundation. He didn't open it right away. Instead, he stared out at the city. The warehouse she mentioned, he'd passed it before. Abandoned. Cold. Empty. A space full of ghosts and silence. But now he saw it differently. Not as a job, as a door, and maybe it was time to stop knocking on other people's. Maybe it was time to build one of his own. The warehouse still smelled like rust and resignation. Old pipes hissed as if remembering water. Dust bloomed in golden shafts of light through cracked windows. It was the kind of place cities forgot, but Noah didn't, because forgotten places he understood. He stood in the center of the main room, boot prints on concrete sleeves rolled. His toolbox sat open beside him, every tool cleaned by hand the night before. Rosie had helped polishing the screwdriver like it was a trophy. "Why are we cleaning tools for a job you haven't taken yet?" she'd asked. "Because work looks different," he said, "when you show up like you mean it." Now, 3 weeks later, he had taken the job. Not because the offer was generous, though it was. Not because the salary had benefits, though it did. But because Evelyn had sent him a one-line follow-up after the proposal. "If you say yes, we start with trust. No agenda. No flourish. Just an open door." He'd walked through it with quiet resolve. Now his steel-toed boots scuffed across a concrete floor where stoves would one day hum and laughter would echo off the walls. He wasn't here to supervise. He was here to build. The first week was dust and permits. The second was measurements and blueprints. The third was action. Noah drew chalk lines across floors and mapped traffic flow for wheelchairs and strollers. He met with fire marshals, electricians, plumbers, and 3 different types of building inspectors. He answered questions no one else thought to ask. And he listened, really listened when the volunteers spoke, not just about tasks, but about why they were there. That's what Evelyn noticed the most. She visited once a week, quietly. No press, no speeches, just observant. She watched from the corner as Noah organized a crew of second-chance hiresmen who'd served time women who'd aged out of the system, veterans with shaky hands and solid hearts. He never raised his voice, never called attention. He just moved with purpose. Like dignity was something you built from the ground up. One afternoon, Harper Voss showed up with a clipboard and her signature skeptical eyebrow. "Are we on schedule?" she asked, dodging a rolling cart of tile samples. Noah, crouched beside an industrial sink, looked up. 2 days ahead. Harper blinked. "That's statistically improbable. We work best when people expect us to fail," he said, tightening a bolt. Harper scribbled something and stepped aside just as Rosie and Isla ran by with paint rollers twice their size. "Girls," Noah called. "Paint only goes on walls." Rosie grinned, but the exit signs looked so sad. "They're federal regulation," he said without missing a beat. "Make them cheerful after inspection." Isla held up a small cutout of a paper sun. "We're taping this over at after." Harper turned to Evelyn, arms crossed. "He's very competent." That's one word Evelyn replied, watching Noah carefully. "You think he knows what he's doing?" "I think he knows why he's doing it," Evelyn said. "And that's rarer than talent." By the second month, the space looked nothing like the blueprint. It looked better. Noah had added things no one asked: for safety latches on drawers, step stools for kids, low counters for those in wheelchairs. Not out of charity, out of logic. This isn't a kitchen, he'd told his crew. It's a table, and everyone deserves a seat. They painted each kitchen a different color, named them after trees: elm, maple, oak. Rosie and Isla insisted on drawing little signs. Evelyn walked in one morning to find Rosie taping one above the pantry. It read, "You tried. That counts." In the break room one afternoon, Evelyn watched Noah sketch out a safety diagram on the whiteboard. His shirt was sweat-stained boots, dusty, but his posture was proud. He didn't know she was behind him. Not until she spoke. "You look different," she said. Noah turned, wiping his hands on a rag. Different, how like someone who finally stopped apologizing for being good. He stared at her for a moment, then smiled, faint but real. "Work looks different on a man with dignity," he said. Evelyn nodded. "That's going on the wall." That night, after the crew had left and the last light flickered off, Evelyn stayed behind. She walked through the finished kitchen, slowly running her hand along the smooth counters, reading each note the girls had left on the walls. She paused in the final room. A small fridge had been labeled in Noah's handwriting, "Take 2, leave 1." She swallowed hard. It wasn't charity. It was belonging. Noah wasn't just building kitchens. He was building the kind of place the world forgot how to make. The next morning, Harper handed her a folder. "The board wants a walkthrough. Press interest is rising. Someone leaked that you hired a janitor with no nonprofit experience to lead a citywide initiative." Evelyn closed the folder. "Let them come. They're expecting a pitch. They'll get outcomes." Harper hesitated. "And if they push back?" Evelyn looked out at the courtyard where Rosie and Isla were drawing suns on the pavement with chalk. She watched Noah crouch beside them to help fix a broken line. If they can't see the value, she said, they don't deserve the result. Later that day, a young volunteer approached Noah with a clipboard. "I'm not good with tools," she said nervously. "I don't know what I'm doing." He handed her a paintbrush. "You showed up. That's enough for today." She blinked. "Really?" He nodded. "We can teach the rest. Willingness isn't weakness. It's the first brick." She smiled. "That should go on the wall, too." Noah grinned. "Don't tempt the girls, they'll actually do it." By week 9, the kitchen stood ready. 6 spaces, 6 stoves, dozens of hands that knew what it meant to be left out and still showed up anyway. Noah walked through each room one final time, checking labels, testing doors, adjusting heights by millimeters. Evelyn found him that evening standing in the middle of the largest kitchen alone. He didn't hear her at first. She let the silence linger. Then she said, "You ready?" Noah looked around, the space eyes sweeping over every corner. "No," he said honestly. "But this place is." She stepped beside him. "Then that's enough." The council chamber smelled of polished wood and politics, a mixture of fresh varnish and old decisions. Rows of folding chairs stretched back like pews in a courtroom. Press badges gleamed from camera lenses. City officials in fitted suits lined the dais, shuffling papers and checking phones as if none of it truly mattered until it did. Item 12B, Variance Approval for Sloan Community Kitchens. Noah sat near the back, hands folded in his lap boots, muddy from that morning's final walkthrough. He didn't belong here. Not really. The suits moved too stiff, the voices too trained. But Evelyn had asked him to come. She hadn't told him to speak. She hadn't told him not to. Just show up. Sometimes presence is louder than applause. So he did. Council Chair Mendez cleared his throat into the mic. Next item, petition to repurpose municipal warehouse space into multi-use kitchen facility under private-public funding. File 12B, Sloan Foundation sponsor. A murmur fluttered through the room. Not excitement, not support. that vague unease people have when someone's trying something new where old things usually rot. A man in a dark blazer stepped up to the mic. Sleek, polished, practiced. Chair, Mendez Council members. My name is Richard Alton. I represent neighborhood preservation interests in the district. Noah tilted his head. That's a fancy way to say developer. Richard continued. While the initiative's intent sounds admirable, the reality is these kitchens will attract loitering, declining property values, potential crime, not to mention traffic congestion in an already fragile corridor, murmurs of agreement from the back row. Noah stared straight ahead. He'd seen that tone before. Politeness painted over prejudice. Another voice chimed in. A woman, this time crisp suit, tighter smile. Community resources are important, she said, but we have food banks, shelters, existing frameworks. Frameworks Noah thought that close at 5 and judge you by your shoes. Council Chair Mendez tapped his gavel lightly. Is there a representative from the Sloan Foundation present to address these concerns? Evelyn stood calm-collected, wearing no makeup and a storm gray coat. But before she could step forward, another voice beat her to it. No mic, just a man standing in the aisle. I'll speak, Noah said. He walked toward the front slowly, not with confidence, exactly, just a kind of deliberate stillness, like every step mattered. Evelyn didn't stop him. Neither did Harper, though her eyes widened just a fraction. Noah reached the mic, adjusted it. His boots echoed across marble. I'm Noah Reed, he began, voice even. I mop your floors at night. A pause. And in the mornings I cook your eggs. The room shifted, unease rising. I've changed light bulbs in 3 of your district offices. Fixed a clogged drain in your planning commission bathroom last May. I don't wear a name tag so you don't remember me. That's okay. I'm used to being part of the background. No one moved. Noah continued, slower now. Steadier. But here's what you should remember when my daughter couldn't breathe. It wasn't a shelter that helped us. Wasn't a program. It was a stranger who didn't ask for paperwork first. Evelyn's throat tightened. Rosie sat on Harper's lap near the wall, listening with wide, unblinking eyes. This kitchen, Noah gestured behind him. It's not a soup line. It's not a PR stunt. It's a place where someone like me doesn't have to choose between pride and a warm meal. He stepped closer to the mic. A kitchen is cheaper than an ER, quieter than a siren, and kinder than a headline. Mendez leaned forward slightly. You give us 6 stoves, Noah finished, and I'll show you 600 nights without a hungry kid. A full beat of silence, then another, then applause. Quiet at first, then louder. 1 pair of hands, then another. Not everyone clapped, but enough did. Outside, after the meeting adjourned, Evelyn found Noah standing under a street lamp coat, unzipped, breathing in the crisp evening air like it was a promise. You didn't have to do that, she said. I didn't plan to. What changed? He looked at her. Someone had to say it like it lives, not just how it looks on a slide. Evelyn exhaled, the tension finally dropping from her shoulders. They'll approve it, she said. Mendez was already leaning our way. But now Noah nodded. Now they've got a reason that's not in a binder. She smiled. That's going on the wall. Across the lot, Harper joined them, coat collar up against the breeze. You pulled it off, she told Noah. No title, no memo, no rehearsed bullet points. I just told the truth, he said. Harper smirked. Hey, that's a radical strategy these days. Evelyn looked over. Updates, council votes next Thursday. Odds are strong. Developers will try to stall with noise, but the public's shifting. Why? Harper glanced at Noah. Because someone like him stood up and didn't flinch. They walked in silence for a bit. The city behind them buzzed with distant traffic and flickering signs. Noah finally asked, You ever get tired of fighting for things that should already exist? Evelyn looked out at the skyline. Every day. Then, why keep going? Because I've seen what happens when people stop. Noah nodded, and for the first time he didn't feel like someone being helped. He felt like someone helping build. The next morning, Rosie placed a hand-drawn sign near the warehouse front door. "This place is for people who try." She taped it, proudly crooked but perfect. Noah didn't fix it. Some things are stronger when they lean. It started with a photo. Grainy, poorly lit, taken through the diner window on a rainy night weeks ago. Noah handing over a paper bag. Rosie's hand resting on his arm. Evelyn, barely visible, hooded her daughter clutching her leg. The headline did the rest. Billionaire falls for janitor in Rainy Rescue romance exclusive photos show Sloan Foundation CEO getting cozy with unknown single father at midnight diner. By morning, the fire had spread. Evelyn stood in the glass-walled conference room of her foundation's headquarters, flanked by Harper and 2 board members. Her phone buzzed relentlessly on the table. Articles, tweets, TV anchors with fake concern and real ratings. Harper slid her tablet across the table. Page 1. National. The photos everywhere now. They ran it with side-by-sides of you at the council meeting and him leaving the warehouse. They're calling it a charity romance. Evelyn didn't blink. They make it sound like I donated a man. Harper didn't laugh. And the board. They're nervous. They want you to step back. At least pause involvement. Evelyn crossed her arms. Pause helping people, because I fed a child. They're saying it's not about the food, it's the optics. Evelyn's voice cut through the room like glass. Then they've forgotten why we built the damn thing. Meanwhile, Noah stood in the warehouse break room staring at the same headline on his phone. The silence in the room was louder than the buzz online. He scrolled past the photo, then another. One from the council chamber. Another from the park bench. His name hadn't even been spelled right. The comments section. Worse, from mop bucket to mattress, smart move guy. She bought herself a janitor. Of course, he said yes. Who wouldn't for a billionaire? Rosie ran in holding a paintbrush. Dad the girls finished The Last Son over the back door. He turned his phone face down. "That's great, baby," he said softly. But inside, something cracked. That night, Evelyn called. "I saw it," Noah said before she could speak. "I figured." He leaned against the wall, the industrial fridge humming beside him. "They turned us into a punchline. They turned me into a scandal," she corrected. "You're the footnote." He let out a humorless breath. "Good to know I'm secondary in my own life." "Noah," she said gently, "I never asked for this. But I won't pretend it didn't happen just because it makes them uncomfortable." He was quiet for a moment. "Then I can resign." Evelyn's voice sharpened. "No. You're under fire. Your board wants distance. If I walk away, you'd teach Rosie that kindness deserves a muzzle," she said low and steady. "You'd teach every person in that kitchen that when the world talks, we fold." Another pause. "I won't fold," she added. "You." The next morning, Harper walked into Evelyn's office with a headline printout and a grim look. 3 sponsors pulled out. 2 more asking questions. We lost a press event. Evelyn was already packing a file folder. Good. We don't need the ones who wanted selfies instead of service. The board is calling an emergency meeting. They can call whoever they want. Harper stepped in front of her. "This could cost you the seat. The title. The whole foundation if they get legal." Evelyn met her eyes. "Then let them have the seat. I'll build something better from the floor." Back at the warehouse, Noah was laying tile in the maple kitchen when a volunteer, Carlos, entered holding his phone. Boss Carlos said, "Careful. It's on the news again." "I know." Carlos hesitated. "You okay?" Noah stood up, wiped his hands on his jeans. "I'm not here to be okay. I'm here to get this floor level." Carlos nodded, then said, "My sister saw the article. Said for once it's about something real, not some politician shaking hands for cameras." Noah raised an eyebrow. "You think this is real?" Carlos smiled. "You think you'd be laying tile with me if it wasn't?" Evelyn walked into the press briefing late that afternoon with rain still clinging to her coat. No stylist, no polish, no umbrella. Just purpose. Reporters buzzed as she stepped to the microphone. Flashes popped, mics clicked on. Miss Sloan, is it true you're romantically involved with the facilities manager you hired? Did your board approve this? Was this project just a personal favor gone too far? She waited for silence, then spoke. I've been asked to defend helping a child breathe, and hiring a man who works 2 jobs with his head up. A pause. I won't. Cameras clicked. Someone coughed. She continued, voice clear. I will, however, remind every person listening, leadership isn't a brand. It's not curated. It's not clickbait. It's a door you hold open while someone else walks through first. One reporter raised his hand. Are you in love with the janitor? The room stilled. Evelyn met the camera head-on. I'm in love with what dignity looks like, she said. Sometimes it wears a tux. Most days it wears steel-toed boots. Back at the warehouse, Harper stood with Noah in the supply closet, phone in hand, replaying the clip. He watched it once, then again, then lowered the phone. She really said that Harper nodded. Verbatim. He looked out through the narrow window where Rosie and Isla were taping paper suns to the doors again, one for each day the kitchens had stood strong. You still thinking of quitting? Harper asked. Noah shook his head. I'd be stupid to leave the first place that didn't ask me to shrink. She smiled. Good, because the world just found out who you are. He sighed. Let's hope they see it past the headline. Harper looked at him serious now. Noah, some people live their whole lives invisible. You got seen. And the story they wrote, you don't control that, but the work that's still yours. He nodded slowly. Then let's keep building. Outside, the sky cleared just enough to let a crack of sunlight through, and beneath it, the warehouse still stood. Not perfect, not quiet, but open, and unashamed. It was raining again. Hard. The kind of rain that blurred headlines and drowned out sirens. Evelyn stood beneath a city-issued canopy just outside the warehouse, her coat soaked through hair pulled back without care. A makeshift podium sat in front of her, flanked by community members, city reporters, and skeptics with too much time and too many lenses. But no teleprompter, no speechwriter. Just her. The microphones crackled with static as the crowd quieted. Behind her, 6 kitchens hummed with life. Inside, volunteers ladled soup. Children stacked bread. The walls still carried drawings of paper suns and messages that read, You matter here. Evelyn adjusted the mic. Rain dripped from her sleeves. They asked me to wait. She didn't raise her voice, but it carried. They asked me to pause, to step back, to let things cool down. She looked at the crowd. Direct. Unapologetic. I was told feeding people could wait until the press forgot my name. A hush spread. The sound of raindrops on canvas was louder than the city noise behind them. I was told that helping a little girl breathe and hiring a man who sweeps floors with dignity was bad optics. A beat. I don't care about optics. Somewhere near the back, a camera flashed. Evelyn stepped forward. I care about the father who came to work every day before the sun rose and stayed long after it fell, who laid tile with blistered hands and didn't once ask to be praised. I care about his daughter who draws suns on doors so strangers know they can walk in without fear. I care about people who show up, not because the world sees them, but because it needs them. Reporters leaned in. One of them, young, maybe new, raised her hand. Mrs. Sloan, are you willing to lose your board seat over this? Evelyn looked directly into the camera lens. I am. Gasps rippled. She continued, voice steady as the rain. Because leadership isn't a title. It's a table you make room at even when it's inconvenient, even when it costs you something. Another mic extended. Are you in love with him? She paused. The question hung there raw, baited, but real. And then Evelyn spoke, quiet but unshaken. I'm in love with what dignity looks like." She let the words sit. Sometimes it wears a tux. Most days it wears steel-toed boots and brings half a sandwich in a brown bag. Applause broke not thunderous, but true. The kind that came from hands that knew hard work. From people who'd waited in lines not for cameras but for warmth. Not everyone clapped, but enough did. Inside the warehouse, Noah watched it all on a small TV above the break room fridge. His arms were crossed, jaw tight. Rosie stood beside him, holding Isla's hand. "Dad." She whispered they're asking weird questions. "Yeah," he muttered. "They are." She didn't look scared. Noah glanced at the screen. "No," he said. She didn't. By the time Evelyn stepped back from the podium soaked to the bone, Harper was waiting with a towel and a familiar raised brow. "You just told half the city to go to hell," Harper said. "I told them to open their damn eyes. And if they close your foundation account tomorrow—" Evelyn wrung out the edge of her coat. "Then we fund this with what we have, and we scale down. And if they take your seat—" Evelyn looked toward the crowd now dispersing under umbrellas. "Then I sit on the curb and keep feeding people anyway." Back inside, the kitchens were buzzing. The team didn't stop during the speech. They kept working. Spoons clattered, boots moved across tile, and trays of sandwiches slid onto long counters. Noah returned to the oak kitchen just as Carlos called, "We're short. 4 trays for the West End drop." Noah nodded. "Take the last of the wheat rolls from the elm fridge. Add the soup containers from maple." Another volunteer asked, "Do we delay until council signs the variance?" Noah shook his head. Hungry doesn't wait for policy. He turned toward the hallway, and there she was. Evelyn. Soaked. Silent. Their eyes met. No words for a moment. Just knowing. He walked toward her slowly. Hands still dusty. Boots wet from the mop room. "You all right?" he asked. She nodded. "Better now." He looked at her. Really looked at her. "You stood in the rain. I had something to say. You didn't have to say it like that. I didn't want to say it small." A pause. "You didn't deny it," he said. The love question. "No. Why not?" She met his gaze. "Because I won't be ashamed of what matters." Noah exhaled something unspoken, easing between his shoulders. "I'm not sure what this is," he said carefully. "Between us." "I'm not asking for a definition," she replied. "Just truth." He nodded. "Okay. Then truth. Please, I've never been anyone's headline. I've always been the broom behind the curtain. And part of me wants to crawl back into that shadow and disappear." She stepped closer. "And the other part," he swallowed. "The other part wants to see what it feels like to be seen. And not pitied." Evelyn smiled, soft, not triumphant. "Then let's promise each other something," she said. "No fairy tales, no roles, no debts. What's left? Whole things," she whispered. "Whole truth, whole respect, whole days that don't ask us to perform." Noah nodded slowly. "Deal." At the far end of the hallway, Rosie and Isla appeared, each holding a paper sun. "We hung the last one," Isla beamed. Over the main door, Rosie added, "So people know they can come in even when it's raining." Noah knelt, pulling her close. "That's perfect, baby." Evelyn crouched beside Isla. "You girls are amazing." Isla grinned. "We just don't want people to feel cold on the inside." The rain outside kept falling, but the building felt warm now. Not just from heat, from resolve, from refusal, from the people who stayed when they didn't have to. Noah looked at Evelyn. Evelyn looked at Noah. No labels, no roles, just 2 people soaked in purpose. And somewhere between the paper suns and the scent of warm bread, something sacred began to feel normal. The line stretched around the block, not because the people were desperate, not because they had nowhere else to go, but because they chose to be here, because something had changed. Not just a building, not just 6 kitchens with bright doors and paper suns, but a sense, quiet, stubborn, that maybe the city still had room for decency. Inside, steam danced off the counters as soup simmered and bread baskets filled. There was no red ribbon, no parade, no stage, no speeches. And Evelyn preferred it that way. Noah stood at the entrance to the oak kitchen clipboard and hand-checking fridge temps and food rotation. His shirt sleeves were rolled forearms dusted with flour, but his movements were steady, deliberate. He didn't smile much, but today there was something lighter in his eyes, something earned. Harper walked in holding 2 radios. "You're officially 3 minutes behind your own rollout schedule," she teased, handing him one. He clipped it to his belt. "Yeah, and I thought we had until the earth cooled." She smirked. "You're getting good at this, you know." "I'm getting used to this," he corrected. "That's different." Outside, Rosie and Isla stood by a hand-painted wooden sign that read, "Take 2. Leave 1." They had argued for a full hour about the wording. Rosie wanted it to sound generous. Isla wanted it to sound fair. In the end, they agreed generosity and fairness weren't opposites. They were teammates. Rosie tapped a can of beans on the table, then smiled at a man hesitating near the line. "You can take it," she said gently. "There's more in the back." He looked at her just a little longer than expected, and then nodded. "Thank you." "You're welcome," she said. "My dad says it's not charity if it tastes like dignity." Noah stepped outside, scanning the crowd, making sure everything flowed. What he saw was not hunger. It was belonging. There were kids holding umbrellas for strangers. A man in a suit helping a woman carry soup trays to her car. A teenager replacing the batteries in the outdoor lantern so no one walked home in the dark. It wasn't loud, it wasn't polished, but it was whole. Evelyn stepped up beside him, hands in her coat pockets. "Not bad for a scandal," she said. He chuckled. "We might need a second one. This turnout's overwhelming." She tilted her head. "You'd let them drag your name again. I'd let them set it on fire," he said, "if it meant this many people felt seen." She looked at him long. "You really mean that? Every word? Then I'd stand beside you in the ashes." Harper's voice crackled over the radio. Maple Kitchen's running low on protein trays. "Who's got backup?" Noah responded instantly. "Check Elm fridge. Bottom shelf label reads, Red A, full batch prepped last night." A beat later, Harper replied, "Copy that." "Look at you, Mr. Logistics." He turned to Evelyn. "You started the fire. I'm just keeping it from burning the pantry." She smiled, and for a moment they didn't need to say more. At noon, an older woman in a bright green scarf stopped Evelyn near the soup station. "You don't know me," the woman said, "but my granddaughter volunteers here. Said it's the first time in months she felt useful." Evelyn's voice softened. "That means everything." The woman nodded, eyes glistening. "I lost my husband last fall. He always said kindness was louder than fear. Took me a while to hear it again." She reached into her purse and pulled out a folded paper, an old church bulletin yellowed at the edges. "I used to hand these out every Sunday," she said. "Today, I think this building does more than I ever did." Evelyn took the paper, held it like something sacred. "We do it together," she said. "Every time someone shows up, the ground shifts." Inside, Rosie and Isla were taping a final message on the main fridge. Crayon letters, slightly crooked but full of fire. "You tried. That counts." Isla stood back proud. "That'll make people feel better when they don't finish everything." Rosie nodded. "Trying is brave." As evening fell, the line shortened. People lingered not because they needed to, but because leaving meant stepping away from the rare warmth that wasn't artificial. Noah checked the back storage one last time, took inventory with muscle memory now built into his bones. Evelyn joined him watching as he noted shelf counts, label dates, and batch IDs. "You don't miss the quiet?" she asked. He paused. "I don't think I was ever meant for it." "Really, I think I mistook silence for peace. Turns out real peace has noise. Mess. Laughter in the hallway. Kids taping sons to exit signs." She watched him work. "You built this." He looked up. "You funded this. You willed it." He leaned against the cold metal shelf. I was just tired of waiting for someone else to fix it. She smiled. Then maybe that's what leadership is. The decision to stop waiting. They walked toward the front together as the last of the crowd trickled out. Harper was wiping down tables. Carlos was laughing with a man about chili ratios. A teenager who hadn't spoken all day gave Rosie a thumbs up. It didn't look like a revolution. But maybe that's how they always start. Evelyn paused at the front door, looking out at the wet sidewalk glistening under streetlights. Noah stood beside her, arms folded. Still raining, he noted. She smiled. That's okay. He glanced at her. You sure? Evelyn looked back over her shoulder into the full warm space behind them, then back at him. We built a roof, she said. Let it rain. The night was quiet in a way the city rarely allowed. No sirens, no clattering footsteps, just the hush of cooling pavement and the hum of soft lights left on inside the 6 kitchens. In the oak kitchen, the last soup pot had been scrubbed, the tables wiped twice over, and the air now carried the faint smell of lemon soap and cinnamon bread. Noah stood at the stainless steel sink drying his hands with a cloth worn thin from use. Behind him, the building exhaled like a living thing finally at rest. Rosie was curled up on the long bench by the window head, resting on a folded hoodie. Isla was next to her mouth, slightly open in the kind of sleep only children knew, pure, heavy, and safe. Evelyn was at the far table, no laptop, no phone, just her and a cup of tea gone cold. He walked over slowly, the sound of his boots softened by fatigue and familiarity. She looked up. You stayed. He nodded. Didn't feel right to leave. Not yet. Feels different tonight. Yeah, he said, sliding into the seat across from her. It's not loud. It's just settled. They sat in silence for a moment. The kind of silence that doesn't rush, the kind that says we don't owe each other a single thing right now, but we're here anyway. Evelyn sipped her tea, winced slightly. Cold. Everything's cold if you wait too long, she said with a half-smile. He watched her studying the way her shoulders no longer carried the weight of expectation, how her hands rested open on the table instead of clasped. I used to think love came with thunder, he said. You know, fireworks, wild declarations, messy heartbreaks. All or nothing. And now I think it looks a lot like this, he said. Quiet, earned, whole. Evelyn's eyes didn't flinch. I'm not used to whole. Me neither. She looked toward the window. Rain tapped gently against the glass like it was asking permission this time. I don't want a love that costs us our names, she said softly. You won't have to give yours up, Noah said. I don't want to be saved, Evelyn. I just want to be beside you. She laughed under her breath. You realize that's probably the most romantic sentence I've ever heard. He shrugged. Not trying to be romantic. Exactly. She reached across the table not to grab his hand, just to place her fingers close enough that they almost touched. Noah didn't move away. I don't need promises, she said. I need presence. You've got mine. Not just on good days. Especially not on good days, he said. Those are the easy ones. A floorboard creaked gently behind them. Rosie rubbed her eyes and sat up. Is it morning? She mumbled. Noah smiled. Not yet, kiddo. Isla stirred next to her. We fell asleep, waiting. For what? Evelyn asked. Rosie stood wobbling just a little. For the next thing. Noah tilted his head. What next thing? Rosie blinked. There's always a next thing, Daddy. Even after something big, there's still more. They helped the girls to their feet. Evelyn held Isla's hand. Noah carried Rosie's hoodie. Together they walked the quiet halls. Every kitchen they passed was clean dark but glowing, each with a paper sun taped somewhere near the exit sign. In the main lobby, Harper sat on the floor with a half-eaten granola bar and a clipboard. Don't say it, she mumbled without looking up. Say what Evelyn asked, amused. That I work too much. You do, Noah said. Harper looked up, eyes tired but bright. You think this thing's gonna last? Evelyn answered. Only if we stop waiting for someone else to believe in it first. Harper nodded. Good, because I've already started drafting the proposal for expansion. Noah raised an eyebrow. Expansion. She held up the clipboard. South District has an abandoned church with a working kitchen. Lease is cheap. I made a plan. Evelyn smiled, full and warm. You're relentless. Harper shrugged. Well, someone has to be the pessimist with a spreadsheet. They stepped outside just before sunrise. The rain had stopped. The air smelled like wet concrete and something else, fresh earth maybe, or beginning. The city wasn't awake yet, but it wasn't asleep either. It was that rare in-between moment when the world felt paused and possible. Noah looked at Evelyn. So what? Now. She took a deep breath. Now we go home. He hesitated. Who's home? Evelyn turned toward the girls, watching them play with raindrops on the hood of her car. I think that's something we get to build, she said. Rosie reached out and took Isla's hand. Let's walk, she said. We don't need the car. Isla looked at her sneakers. But it's wet. Rosie grinned. We're not made of sugar. Noah chuckled. She gets that from her mom. She gets that from you, Evelyn said. They walked slowly. No rush, no agenda. Evelyn carried her heels in one hand. Noah held Rosie's hoodie over his shoulder. Isla danced in the puddles. No headlines, no speeches, just footsteps and presence. And maybe that was the real story. Not a scandal, not a rescue, not a romance built on lightning, but a handful of people choosing to stay, choosing to show up, choosing whole things when half would have been easier. As they reached the street corner, Rosie looked up at the sky. Is it going to rain again? Evelyn followed her gaze. The clouds had thinned, but not gone. Maybe she said, but that's okay. Why, Noah looked at his daughter and then at the woman beside him. Because now he said we don't run from it. We walk through it. Together. The girls skipped ahead, and behind them, a city not yet perfect but changed. A building with 6 kitchens, 100 hands, and one quiet truth. Kindness doesn't ask for applause, it just asks for room. And maybe a roof. The wind picked up slightly cool, but not cold. Evelyn leaned closer to Noah, not clinging, just standing near enough to feel real. You think anyone will believe this story? She asked. Noah smiled, his voice low and even. They won't have to, he said. They'll feel it. Maybe it wasn't about the sandwich, or the rain, or the kitchens. Maybe it was about one small choice. The decision to stay when it's easier to walk away, to give when no one's watching, to love not loudly but fully. If you've ever witnessed an act of kindness that changed someone's life, or if you were ever the one who was helped, tell us. What city are you watching from? What moment made you believe that even strangers could become shelter? Leave your story in the comments, because when we share these stories, we remind each other we're not alone. We're part of something bigger, quieter, stronger, and if this story touched your heart, subscribe to this channel so you won't miss the next one. There's always another story waiting to be told, another heart waiting to be heard. Maybe it's yours. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And above all, thank you for believing that kindness still matters.